How's it going, everyone? The Packers are having another top 30 visit with a wide receiver. First one was with Isaiah Bond outside of Texas, and this one is also going to be another wide receiver out of Texas. So his teammate, Matthew Golden. So Matthew Golden comes into this year's draft class as the second best overall ranked wide receiver in the draft class, according to the consensus draft board, and 19th overall out of all the draft prospects. For his RAS score, he did not qualify due to lack of measurements, but he comes in at a height of 5'11 and weighs 191 pounds, so a little bit on the shorter side and not as big as the Packers typically go. But where he excels, like his teammate in Isaiah Bond, his 40-yard dash, which is the faster of the two. He ran a 4.29 at the combine, which actually puts him as the fastest wide receiver out of all the receivers that ran the 40-yard time at the combine at 4.29, and the next one being from Tennessee, Dante Thornton Jr. Now, for his time at the collegiate level, he spent 3 years at college. First 2 years was with Houston, then he transferred over to Texas. So in his first year at Houston as a freshman, he played in 11 games, had 38 receptions, 584 yards, and 7 touchdowns. In his second year at Houston, played only in 9 games, had 38 receptions again, and 404 total receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Then transferred over to Texas in his final year, played in all 16 games, had 58 total receptions for 987 yards and 9 touchdowns, and was just a complete vertical threat. As you can see in year one, 15.4 yards per reception, then went down to 10.6 in his second year, then back up to his highest at 17 yards per reception. And then moving on to the PFF side for his grades, in his first year at Houston, had a 65.3 offensive grade, a 65.3 receiving grade. And then in his second year at Houston, had a 68.4 offensive grade and a 68.5 receiving grade. But then after moving or transferring over to Texas, went up to a 74 offensive grade and a 75.6 receiving grade. And he had a total of 14 drops in his entire collegiate career. Had 4 drops in his first year, 6 drops in his second year, and then finally 4 drops again with Texas. So a total of 14. So it didn't drop too many balls, but still a little bit more than you would like to see. Moving along onto the run blocking grade, since run blocking is very necessary for Matt LaFleur and wants all his receivers to run block. First year at Houston, 66.5. Second year at Houston, 73.5, a lot better. And then in his final year at Texas, 60.5 run grade. And as you can see, he actually doubled the amount of snaps that he was run blocking for. So a bit of a bigger sample size than the first 2 at Houston. Now, for some of the pros for Matthew Golden, great long speed and burst off the ball to create explosive plays down the field. Separation creator due to sharp and crisp route running ability. Speed modulation to keep defensive backs on their heels. Catch point competitiveness with good hand-eye coordination and body control. But for some of the cons for him, consistency with use of hands in contact window to combat long-limbed physical corners. Has battled injuries over the past few seasons, 5 games missed prior to 2024, and that's why he didn't play as many games in each season with Houston. Cleaning up concentration drops, accounted for 13 over the last 3 seasons. So 13 concentration drops out of 14 total drops for him in his entire college career. So pretty much all of them being concentration drops, which is a bit of a bummer. That can, of course, get rectified, but still a little bit sad to see. And then play strength concerns contribute to struggles sustaining run blocks after initial contact. Also kind of makes sense. He's a little bit undersized and probably needs to get some bulk, but he is more of a speedster receiver. But overall, Matthew Golden is an explosive and dynamic receiver with positional flexibility. He could play on the outside or he can play in the slot. It doesn't really matter. He is flexible at either receiver, and he's not just strictly a slot dude. And it sounds like he's a very good yak catcher. So very good run after the catch. Makes a lot of sense, especially with that speed. And to the fact he can cut, it kind of sounds more attuned to like a Tyreek Hill kind of sense. If I were to kind of compare him, super fast, can cut on a dime, just super athletic. And to add to his resume, he's not afraid of the big moment. In his final year with Texas at the SEC game against Georgia, he had a 162-yard game against this Georgia defense And then in the college football playoffs against Arizona State, he had a 149-yard game and just was absolutely dominant in both performances at the highest level during the playoffs, during the championship. So he doesn't shy from the big moment, which is also great to see and kind of adds to his competitiveness. Now the question becomes, will the Packers go for him? It's hard to say. He is, yes, the 19th overall ranked prospect, but currently on the consensus draft board, he's projected to go number 12 to the Cowboys. And they kind of project him to go before at least the 20th pick. So with the Packers picking 23, they would have to trade up in that scenario. Will the Packers do it? I don't entirely see it, especially since, per Matt LaFleur, he feels very confident in the receiver group and they need to do a bit better in kind of scheming some things. So it doesn't seem like they're fully pressed to, they must draft a receiver with the first overall pick. Of course, they were looking potentially for a receiver, a very big, fast, vertical threat in the offseason with DK Metcalf, but allegedly they weren't in the competition, but that could just be after the fact, of course, because trying to cover their tracks. But even with that, still, this Packer group, this wide receiver group, needs some more speed on the offense. We lost Christian Watson, need to replace that. Yes, we got Mecole Hardman, but can we fully trust him? Is he just going to potentially vie for a special team spot? There's still a lot of depth with this team that, yes, did underperform, but there are going to be growing pains with such a young receiver group. But with less than a month, we'll see where the Packers go and how the draft kind of lays out. He could fall to us and they might nab him, or he could get taken very early by the Cowboys at number 12. There's still a lot of time, and players can rise and fall within the draft board, especially with their visits and pro days. But let me know what you think down in the comments. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, go Pack Go.